It's the end of the summer. Does that mean it's time to put away the tequila?
On the top shelf. No, not on the top shelf. I think I'm going to put mine on the middle shelf this time, so it's a little more convenient to get to.
What tequila are you putting on the middle shelf, Michael?
Oh, Los Sereno.
Los Arango tequila.
Absolutely.
Los Arango have proudly sponsored this podcast throughout the summer and haven't regretted it yet.
No, they haven't pulled anything. So I'm really glad that we got to go to Mexico. If you haven't listened to our 3-part Mexican podcast, please go listen to them.
The podcast is in fact not in Mexican; it's in English. It just takes place in Mexico.
It is the Mexican podcast, though.
Anyways, Los Arango Tequila. Thank you again for supporting Two Guys Talking Wine. Let's run the theme song.
You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pinkus and André Prue.
Michael.
André, I think I should set the scene.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
We're in the forest.
Okay.
The breeze is blowing.
Crickets are chirping.
Crickets are chirping.
I think if we put our ear to the speaker loud, we might hear some cicadas as we're in the very end of summer here.
It's a lovely sound, and we are here at Malivoire Winery.
We are.
With two very special guests.
Wow, you're really leaning into this whole like NPR CBC thing, aren't you?
You asked me to, so I thought I'd go right for it. I could also go. Anyway, no, I'm not going to. We're not.
You're running out of steam. Okay,
no,
I
wasn't going to do political references anymore. So
our special guests.
So we have Shiraz Mottiar, and we have Elisa Mazzi. Oh goodness, I got that right.
And I guess it's in one thing where we got your Elisa. You said you don't listen to the podcast, so you never knew that this happened. But we got your identity wrong twice on previous episodes.
Correct.
We got your name wrong in one episode, and then we miscategorized you as French in the other episode.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
So even though you haven't heard it, we apologize for that.
No worries.
I think I said you were French, and we didn't know the name, and it was all. So we are here, and I've said this before, and I find this kind of funny. We are in the house of Gamay that Shiraz built. If you think about that, it's hilarious. And actually, if you Google Malivoire, it comes up Malivoire Gamay. It doesn't come up as Malivoire Winery. It comes up as Malivoire Gamay. Correct. Yeah. It's absolutely hilarious. So, we are here. We've obviously talked to Shiraz before.
Yes.
So you're going to be a bit player.
Yay.
Because we're here to speak to somebody, Elisa, who you're taking over a pretty iconic winery.
Yes, I do.
As her eyes bug out.
Yep.
So
you just for the listeners' sake, we are minutes away from the beginning of harvest.
Yep.
Yeah, like literally minutes.
We are recording this August 27th. And as we all noted today, Arterra blasted on social media today that they started their sparkling wine harvest. I guess maybe the first question for you two before we get into the changes, is this early for a sparkling wine harvest in Ontario, or is this normal for, I guess, what's been a fairly hot year?
Well, from the last few years, this is definitely early. We harvest this early before, but in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say this is the earliest that we are looking at picking sparkling.
So what are we, about 2 weeks ahead, a week and a half ahead of normal?
Yeah, what's normal again?
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, so now we will not ask you how the vintage is going to be, and I'll explain that right now.
Why not? Don't we want them to Brian Schmidt it?
We don't want you to Brian Schmidt it. And what happened was, a few years back, we had Brian Schmidt in 2021. On August 31st, we had Brian Schmidt on the podcast, and he said it's going to be a great vintage. It's going to rival 2020. So it's all Brian's fault. 2021 is Brian's fault.
It got worse when he spiked the football. Sorry, it's important that we remind him of this. Is at the end of September, he spiked the football on everyone where he's just like, oh, all you Pinot growers, thank God I'm a Cab Franc specialist and I don't have to worry about any of this breakdown that you guys deal with. And anyways, just wanted to remind people that, no, we're not going to...
we're not going to ask you that question.
We're not going to prophesize the...
we can talk afterwards and find out how it went. But so today we're going to be tasting some of these wines. Elisa, when did you take over the winemaking process?
So officially it was a year ago.
Okay.
But I've been working with Shiraz for the last 12 years.
Oh, so you're the
Longer.
woman behind the man.
13.
So
Wow.
yeah. But yeah, the official title was last August, I would say. So
And as the assistant, that means you were doing everything.
pretty much.
Yeah. So Shiraz has been taking credit for 13 years.
I'm a smart guy.
So now you are the face of the. Has it been difficult to take over the face of winemaking here? Because Shiraz One is still here. Usually, if a winemaker, he moves on, but you're still here. You're now the GM
Are you
or whatever
hinting
it
at
is.
something?
No. I was talking to Martin, and he said you're definitely safe for a while.
I mean, it's not. I guess the long and short of it, like, and Michael, you're asking a question where I do. Like, when you see winemakers move and depart, it's not often that everyone stays in house. Like, this is a big change for you, Shiraz, because you've been the face of this winery.
Don't even want to start about that, but yes.
But you are the face. Like, in fact, I even met you during a rosé, both of you, during a rosé event earlier in the year, and I kept asking questions to you. And you kept pointing to Elisa and going, ask her. She's the one who knows. Because I'm just so used to asking you the winemaking questions.
Yeah, it's so nice to defer questions from you, Michael, to Elisa.
We are a big family. We are a big family. The fact that the owner is still involved and is a big part of the company, that Shiraz is still, around, and it is comfortable for me be the face of the company, but in the same times, I know I can lean on some help if I have to, because of course the experience is part of this job, right? Like, you can't just be a winemaker studying on a book. Experience make a huge difference. So having him sort of like on the background, it is quite nice.
And speaking of background, what is yours? So obviously people can tell that there's an accent there. We've already said that she is Italian.
Not French.
Yep. So what is your background? What brings you to Ontario? What's your background in winemaking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Your turn.
Do you want to know the
Absolutely.
nice story or the reality?
You can tell us any story you
Whatever
want.
one you want. There's a microphone in
Obviously,
front of you.
you've been making Shiraz look good for 13 years. So
Yeah, so I study viticulture and enology in Italy, in the north part of Italy. And after graduating, I kind of wanted to do an experience somewhere outside Italy before I kind of settle. And to be honest, I didn't even know Canada making wine at that point, because nobody really talked about Canada in Europe. So obviously California was the big dream, but for a friend of a friend of a friend, then I actually never met. I landed at Jackson Tricks for a harvest. And then after that, I started to get to know a little bit of the Niagara region. And I did another harvest in New Zealand after that. And then I decided to come back here and try to do another harvest. And that's where I was supposed to work at Hinniskilling. And the day before harvest, I found out that Shiraz was looking for a person, and I came here. I remember very clearly, it was the long weekend of September, and the winery was actually, the production was shut down. So he turned on the light, and then he said, okay, when can you start? About tomorrow morning. I said, sure, let me email Enniskillen that I'm not going to show up there. And here I am.
So what was it
the
that
crackling sound was a bridge that I heard burning.
maybe what was it that drew you to Malivoire? Like, you already had a job lined up. You also had a job lined up at a good winery, established winery, probably one of the only Canadian wineries with a large international reputation. What was it about Malivoire that you dropped everything to come work here?
A hope for the future, because I knew that Enniskillen was a strictly seasonal job. And talking with Shiraz, I say, well, we're an opportunity to grow and expand the productions and maybe adding another position. So I say, well, I'll get my chance. Either do a seasonal at another winery or a Malivoire. It was still a seasonal job. And then that turned into a part-time job. Then it turned into a full-time job. And here I am as a head of winemaking.
I mean, the practical side of that story is a little disappointing. Like, I was hoping for the big romantic thing where it's just like, oh, the reputation of the facility here surpassed anything I could have expected. But, I mean, the real story, I guess it's how people move around.
It tracks.
Yeah, got to pay the bills, right?
So I hear you are like the queen of sparkling wine. That's
Wow.
what somebody has described you as.
Oh,
I don't remember who said that.
I would like to double down on that at I4C in the panel of sparkling wines. Your Bizou Brut was going toe to toe with wines that cost 3 times the price, and easily stood up next to those wines on that panel. If that's not something to be proud of, I don't know what is.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take it. Well, I think it started from sort of like my origin. I'm from Verona, like very close to Prosecco. I also studied in Trentino, it's a big producer of sparkling. So my love, for sparkling, it's always been there. But when I came to Canada on the first time, and it was the end of August, and I came with a winter jacket because I was coming to Canada. So I got off at the airport, and it was 35 degrees. And I said, I should go to a thrift store and start to buy some shorts because I'm going to boil. And I say, well, we have Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and the cool climate that we're continue to talk about it. So it's a perfect for sparkling, in my opinion. So when I actually started in 2011 with Shiraz, the first week that we met, we say like, oh, I see you don't make any sparkling. I say, have you ever thought about it? And I think that's when we made the first base, and it was kind of like, my experience, obviously, it wasn't a lot. Shiraz never really made base sparkling and Malivoire before, but I say, well, let's give it a try. And since then, I think that we went to the right direction.
Yeah. It was. I think the story of the Queen of Sparkling makes perfect sense because, that was the year that I originally planned to I finally convinced Martin that we needed to make a sparkling, and then when Elisa showed up and we did it, and the way we planned it, we were going to make a Brut that would be 3 years on lees, and then a Rosé the next year on 2 years on lees, and come out in 2015. With our first 2 traditional method sparkling wines called Bizou, and we're tasting the Bizou Rosé right now, and from the moment we released that, Elisa became our de facto sparkling winemaker. So we actually made the announcement when we released the wine. So she's been in charge of the program, and the whole program has evolved with Elisa. And there's been such a great camaraderie amongst other winemakers in Ontario to learn and share, and she's been at the very center of that. So it's not just us who benefits.
Good. So because we have the sparkling, as you said, it's absolutely delicious. Yeah. So I got no notes. It's just really delicious.
Like raspberry candy, but bone dry. Really, like it's one of those things in Ontario where it's hitting 2 things where the acids are both sharp and soft at the same time.
Yep.
Like it's palate cleansing, but it's hanging out on the mid palate for a little bit longer before it passes over the back of your tongue.
So I see 6 bottles in front of us. So would you like to pour something next, and then we can ask Elisa her part in it and
absolutely
any choices she made.
I gotta make sure Elisa approves of my choices.
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay,
I didn't necessarily.
We literally grabbed stuff out of the shop.
I don't know if he did grab out of the shop. I think it took him a long time. I think he was making his own wine so he could say, "I made this one."
Actually, I brought one that hasn't. I had nothing on. Actually, there are 2 of them here. This rosé and this gamay. So, you get to pour these wines?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, let's start with the Rosé Moira.
I really love the label on this. Actually, it caught my eye when I was in the tasting room. And how long has this label been on the Moira?
We made some changes in the last few years, but I would say 3 years that we decided to have the printed glass instead have just a normal label, and it just gives the extra elegant look to me that a rosé deserve. It's like a lipstick that it just and the wine better. Just the look matters.
I appreciate you saying that, like, especially as the winemaker, because like I know it's something we talk about on the podcast quite a bit is how much time I spend thinking about labels, but as someone who's got a little virtual winery that focuses on making rosé, having other producers that are really pushing to make rosé taken more seriously, and I think it is being taken seriously by a big part of the market, but there's still some holdouts that think that rosé is an afterthought or have an expectation of it. I think it's important that thought and care goes into it. How many rosés are you guys making now?
If you count the sparkling, are 4.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladybug, Moira, Vivant,
and
the
Rosé.
Bizot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We have experimented with a barrel-aged rosé many years ago, which can always make a comeback whenever you want it to. I really liked it. We work with Cabernet Franc, Gamay, and Pinot Noir. Rosé Moira is all Pinot Noir, as is Vivant, but and Ladybug being a blend of the 3. But there's always opportunities to make new blends of rosé. So the door is always open for new experimentation because and rosé is the thing. Like you say, I don't know how you introduced me building Gamay, but Ladybug certainly built this winery.
Yes,
And-
I said
and
it's
so-
the house
yeah.
of Gamay that Shiraz built.
Okay,
it's
well.
pretty because it's play on your name.
But this is the winery that Ladybug made, and so it's still, one of the top wines we focus on.
It's still widely available at the LCBO as well.
It is.
It's been interesting, like as a critic and a consumer, though, to see how that style of wine has evolved. Because I remember I started writing about wine in 2010, and that wine was like it wasn't a sugar bomb, but there was quite a bit of residual sugar in it at the beginning. And year by year, you kept dropping the sugar. And now is it below like 5 or 6 in and around there?
Yeah.
It's 3 by the LCBO measure, but by our measure, it's lower than that by a long shot.
So how have the consumers responded? And like you guys are going all in on rosé. Like, is there a lineup of people out the door looking to buy rosé now?
I think the rosé movement really took off probably 7 years ago. It just seemed to explode. Maybe a little bit longer. We started making Rosé Moira in 2013. So this is my math is weak, but it's 530. The 11th vintage of this wine, and so we've had some good track. A track of making more than one rosé. And people are still, I don't know if they're clamoring, but people are still wanting rosé, especially on a day like today, in the various styles that we make. I think when we started making this and we found how great it is to have such a dry, rich rosé, it was just it was hard to avoid not having that influence how we wanted to make Ladybug 2. And we just made a concerted effort not to destroy what we had built with our consumers by all of a sudden going dry. So we came out with a second wine that was bone dry and pale, and we slowly moved Ladybug towards that. And it was a long process, but we couldn't have done it in 1 or 2 years.
So and then there's also Vivant, which sits somewhere in the middle. It always seems to be my favorite of the 3. Where does that sit in the sugar scale, and why did you decide to go with another Pinot Noir rosé?
In terms of sugar, they're all bone dry, like the Vivant and Moira as well. The main reason was when we start to make the Moira rosé, we did a test with another vineyard, like here on our estate, and with the same process of winemaking, the wines were totally different. And I think at a certain point we couldn't decide if one was better than the other one, and we all like both of them. So I said, well, why don't we make 2 different pale rosé?
I didn't want to do that. I wanted to blend them, but we wanted to maintain. We had started Rosé Moira as a single vineyard, and so we wanted to maintain that.
Yeah, it was purely the idea of they were very good, both of them. So it was not like one or the other, or let's blend it in one way or the other. They were pretty different, I would say. So, but again, the style it's the same grapes. It's just different site and only a few kilometers apart. But the 2 vineyards always, since I remember making red wine from them, they were like a gigantic difference between them.
So I'm looking at Andre's glass. It's empty. I'm assuming that's a Chardonnay on the table. So I have another question about rosé.
Sure, go ahead.
So the other vineyard, is it like the Vivant vineyard, or is the Vivant a also a single vineyard? Just that you don't name the single vineyard?
Correct.
Okay. You just don't name the vineyard that it is.
Do you want to name the vineyard? Do you want to name the vineyard on the podcast?
Yeah, you want to name it?
It's the estate vineyard.
Oh, it's
it's right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
but one year we did some of my fruit and from the Mottiar vineyard in the Vivant as well. So it was just the 1 year, but that Elisa gives us the flexibility if we want to use another. If we want to blend 2 vineyards, but I think. More often than not, this vineyard gives us enough to make Vivant.
Got it. And you don't want to call it the Vivant vineyard.
Or interesting. That would be an interesting name.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Martin.
Yeah, the lively vineyard.
Speaking of the Mottiar vineyard, the Chardonnay is a 2021 Chardonnay from the Mottiar vineyard.
This is a Pinot Gris, Andre.
It doesn't say Pinot Gris on the bottle.
What are you
What the hell
saying?
are you
Does
doing?
it taste like a Pinot Gris to you?
No, I was just trying to mess with him, so he thought he was pouring Chardonnay. Didn't even look at it.
No, I read the label.
All right.
I mean, it's cool that you grabbed the 2021 vintage because there's still a lot of people rolling through the 2021s, 2022s are starting to come out, and what's been fascinating is just seeing the strength of the Chardonnay coming from 20. And at least it's for people who can't see your face because this is a podcast. You're getting a big smile on your face, a bit of a smirk. Just talking about 2021, like what's going through your head with me just setting up the question?
Yeah, every time that I think about 2021, I was like, I kind of want to remove from my memory because it was such a hard time. It was like the hardest, probably like 2 months of my life. But then you tasted this wine and it's like, it's delicious. Like, how did we make a great wine from a year like that? But my professor at university always remind me that a good winemaker is the person that can make good wine from not great grapes. Because if you have very good grapes, there is a good chance that the wine is going to be great. So 2021, it was, again, whoever can remember this few weeks of just rain and fog and just...
Brian Schmidt's fault.
Not great.
Yeah, Brian Schmidt, all his fault.
I'm going to call him
So
right
what?
now.
So what is the secret sauce? And I think this question goes to both because Shiraz, you've worked hard vintages as well. The 2021s from the great wineries have been nothing short of stunning, especially with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Despite the vintage, in spite of the vintage, I guess. Like, I mean, you usually get something from 2021, and you're like, and you lower expectations because you know what the vintage is.
But these ones have surpassed.
And then you taste them and you
surpassed.
go, okay, that's well above what I even thought it was going to, even close to being.
So what is the secret sauce for a tough vintage?
A great winemakers.
I was gonna lean on the vineyard manager, the viticulturalist, the experience and knowing. We are so lucky that we have some of the best vineyards in Niagara, and even though we got nailed with fog and rain. Maybe our soils could absorb it faster than the vines could take it up. We still saw so much what we call grapes melting on the vine or exploding as you pick. There was some disasters, but we managed to make sure that we're not picking the worst fruit. I think that's important. Our vineyard manager makes sure that those that are picking or thinning are cleaning out the worst, and it's all that extra work so that you maintain what is good in the fruit, and that comes from the variety, the site, and just, I don't know. I tend to think we're lucky, but we're not. I think we work really hard at making sure that it's there, and all the goods are there.
So, Michael, I actually want to put a question to you, because we've already joked a little bit about Malivoire's identity, like it's the house that Gamay built. You said, Shiraz, it's the house that Ladybug built. I definitely think the sparkling wine that you made, especially the current incarnation that's available at the shop, caused a bit of a stir, at least among my circle of friends at I4C. When you think of Chardonnay from Malivoire, what comes to mind?
That's a good question, because I think that because I do a rosé report every year, and because I do have a love for a Gamay, I think Chardonnay for me gets totally lost in the shuffle. And I don't remember until Eric drops off a bottle and I go, oh yeah, they make Chardonnay as well.
You know what? I'll do a mea culpa and say I'm partly responsible for that, which is what one of my most memorable tastings last year was when you came and did a tasting with me and a couple of who are now Malivoire converts in between Christmas and New Year's, and thank you again for that. And I left this place with a case of Chardonnay, and I think one of the reasons why Chardonnay might get lost in the shuffle is when I think of Chardonnay from Malivoire, I think of restraint. It's not as in your face as the Chardonnay from Leaning Post or Batchelder or Le Clos Jourdain, but you're still getting like really great balance and just a little bit more elegance, almost easier drinking.
Yeah, it's that's I think the Mottiar is one of the ones that shows a little more of its oak home, but some of the other ones are quite delicate, let's say.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, sorry guys, it just gets lost in the shuffle to me.
Oh,
I know
not
you make.
for me. Like
I know you make Pinot as well, right? I just don't think of and I think of Milan occasion for whites, right? Because you really made that almost iconic for you guys in the summer, and there are people.
I would have grabbed one, but we have not. We've sold out.
Yeah,
again, as always.
Yeah, you
always
sell out. You make a little bit more
Yep.
almost every year, and still it sells out.
Well, I don't need to apologize because, like I said, I bought a case of it when I visited in December, and I've been enjoying my way through it, and now have some sitting in the cellar. So,
Melon or Chardonnay?
No, Chardonnay.
Oh, okay, got it.
But I mean, it's an expression of who we are. We don't like to, when we think of Chardonnay, we don't think of oak as many others would, or lees, or sort of like a fat richness. We really like that the edge that Chardonnay from the bench can give us, and we wanna showcase that. And I mean, Elisa and I are so aligned. We always find the same tank and go, we just got to bottle this tank, like barrels. This is where Chardonnay's at, and we do. I should go get it.
He's going to make it right now.
Let's keep things moving along, and thanks for sharing that Chardonnay. We got 3 more bottles to go through here. What are we on to next, guys?
Pinot Noir Gamay.
Let's do the Pinot first, because Gamay kind of feels like the
pinnacle of Malivoire.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, not to build it up. So, like, if we're disappointed by the Gamay, then Michael and I are just both going to look like a couple of weenies. But we're used to that.
Yeah. Andre's a weenie normally.
Of course you say that when I'm off mic.
Yeah, exactly. I saw how you were leaning. I'm like, all right, I'm going to lean into the weenie thing, too.
This is 2022 Mottiar Pinot Noir.
Oh, so he grabbed his own stuff, I see.
know. Yeah. This might be the last chance for me to...
What do you mean last chance? For this one? Or
I'm kidding. Just for choosing this. It's
Gotcha.
This is Elisa's show.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, next time it'll be just Elisa on the program. It'll be like, so what's Shiraz doing? Oh, I don't know. We lost contact.
Well,
with him.
maybe tongue in cheek. What's it like passing the fruit from your vineyard that you own and giving the fruit to someone else to?
Well, I mean, it's still in house. It doesn't feel any different, honestly. We've been intertwined, growing together for so long. It's all one and the same. So,
and it's very hard keeping out of the cellar. Sometimes I found them in the barrel cellar tasting. I say, Oh, I was just curious to see these barrels. Oh, okay. But
Well,
it's all good.
You got to keep your instrument sharp.
100%.
Otherwise, I'll lose it.
This Pinot is just glorious.
That's pretty good. This is really lovely.
Really, I mean, 22. That was after the winter damage from 21. So was it a short crop for you?
Not so bad here, but yeah, my farm. Oh my gosh, my farm. It just butts up against the woods, and there's a low spot right there, and so a whole acre did not produce anything. Which was lovely, but yeah. So it was short crop in terms of certain spots had nothing and certain spots were fine. So it wasn't like all the vines were only giving me 1 ton per acre, which then you might equate to this amazing concentration. It was like some was giving us our usual 2.5 ton per acre, and some gave nothing, but it was still a great vintage after that. Right.
So I'm getting a little spiciness off of here.
Oh, completely. Did you do any whole cluster on this?
Yes. Because 2022 was relatively clean, I try to aim for 10% whole cluster. It usually lands anywhere between 0 and 10, depending on the year. On average, 3 to 5. But it's hard because you do want clean fruit. Pinot Noir. It is so potentially breaking down that you only want the nicest clusters going in. So I'm pretty picky when it comes to whole cluster picking.
So, Elisa, you've talked long enough, I think. Okay, so I'm going to focus back over here. So at some point in the last, if I got it correct, about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, somebody walked up to you. It could have been this gentleman right here. It could have been somebody else. It could have been Martin, and said, Elisa, you are now head winemaker. What's the feeling? What's the thought? What?
My first thought is say, where is Shiraz going?
Yeah.
And then they explain what the whole situation was. I was excited for sure. I don't want to say that I was waiting this moment for a long time, but I think at a certain point on your career, you want us to be at the top, and I think to be a winemaker is probably one of my dream. And I was like, great, and I had to say, like, Malivoire has always been on the top of the list of the places that I would want to work as a winemaker. In Niagara, there is other great wineries, but you also hear a lot of stories on what's going on and like the future, that it might be like there or not. And Malivoire always been, and knowing the fruit and knowing what the potential for sparkling and all this sort of like the thing that I work hard in the last 10 years, and it's kind of was like I'm ready. I'm good to go. So
I could see a big smile on the face. So Shiraz, did you present that news, or did who presented the
Martin
news?
and I went together.
Did you think you were being fired when they walked in? Thank you for your service. Goodbye.
Look on her face. I'm not sure. What are both of these guys doing walking in?
Yeah,
kind of, because it
can
was
I
totally
hide in this tank.
It was totally unexpected, to be honest. So, and me and Shiraz always talk about like what's the future, what's what I wanted to do, where's my plan is, and what's my expectations. So it was never really a hide from our conversation, the fact that at some point I was ready for be a winemaker, make my own decision and sign invoices. That's do a lot of more paperwork.
Okay,
this is something I haven't mentioned on the podcast. One of the reasons I left radio was because I worked in a very toxic workplace, and one of the big problems was that leadership was very happy with the status quo. To Shiraz, to see that you've got certainly a bit of pride in your body language, that you're able to mentor someone into your position, I think is a testament to the leadership here. And
I'm proud of all the people who have worked in our company and have gone on to great successes, and there are many winemakers across the country who maybe did their first harvest with us, and that's great. And it's a good incubator for. I don't know if the culture here it builds that, but I hope as whatever we're doing it seems to be working.
I think that's a template for great leadership. So even if you're not in the wine industry listening to this, that's something you should take notes on for how to effectively manage and nurture a team.
Well, I mean, they've also been here a while. Like, I don't even know how old the winery is. They've been here so long. I feel like they should be part of the pre-93 group, but they're not.
We're not.
They've been here for seemingly forever. Like, I can't remember. I can't remember the Ontario landscape without Malivoire in it.
Part of it is because wineries I discovered.
I think Malivoire made a big splash when we started. Everything was different. Ooh, the Gravity Winery. Ooh, they're planting tight. Ooh, they're not planting Cabernet. And a lot of things are Riesling, right? There was a lot of things that were like, ooh, they're doing something different. And
the building is different. It's not a square box. It's this corrugated.
But the cool thing about this place, though, and this is one where I put the marketing hat on, though, is because I was still one of the first things I discovered, and one of the things I loved to report on was the first Guilty Men that you guys made, and that was a cool story. Martin having to backtrack on saying he's never going to make wines in this style, but the thing is, you built your core audience, which is why I asked the question about Ladybug earlier, and Gamay, and this place has a firmly established identity, but it's still a house of experimentation, which it's very difficult to hit everyone, right? To hit everyone in the crowd. You can be in Enniskillen, but you're largely seeing tour buses roll up to Enniskillen in the summer, and it's not a lot of people like me and Michael. And you've done a great job here building an LCBO brand, but still keeping the snobs interested. Is that a challenge to make sure that are hitting both streams? Can you be everything to everyone, or is there a sacrifice on the way?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, certainly we sacrifice Guilty Men. Elisa and I, and either she's biting her tongue or she'll pull no punches. But she hated us making it, and I felt the same way. It was a fun project, but you felt like, and I don't want to say you were selling your soul, but it wasn't. We always talked about it not being in our DNA to make something for the masses. I mean, this winery was never designed for that. And so we were honestly, we were very happy. I think we did a little happy dance when we decided, okay, this is.
I can be blunt. The first vintage was excellent. Everything after that, it felt like it was missing its soul. So maybe you sold it somewhere to make that wine.
So I'm going to be a little more controversial than that. I feel.
Please, Michael.
So, you can only be Guilty Men for so long. Do you know what you can? It's blackball Riesling. You can only be blackball Riesling when you've been blackballed. After that, you're not blackball Riesling anymore, and you shouldn't be able to call it blackball Riesling. You can only be Guilty Men for making that style of wine for so long, and after you start making it for a while, you're
just men.
You're just men. You're just men making wine, right? So, so there. That's my controversial.
Well, maybe credit to Stephen Gash, my predecessor, who along with a lot of pleading from us, finally pulled the plug at the right time.
Yeah,
100%.
Correct. There's got to be a right time to pull the name because it no longer fits.
All right, so bringing it back to the wine that's in front of us now that we've gone really far away from Pinot. This Pinot is really just outstanding. It's got a really nice density to it, the spice that you said, Michael, but still really great rich cherry. This wine is clearly built for a long life in the cellar. I can see holding on to this for 10 to 15 years and it's still being young and vibrant. Fantastic Pinot.
For a guy who doesn't hold on to his wine that long.
I started to with Pinot. It's every bottle of old Pinot I grab is okay, maybe I do like some old wines, and you guys are hearing it here first. That
wow.
Andre's starting to hold his Pinot a little longer.
Yeah, I caught that too, and I was I thought we had stopped doing that kind of humor on the podcast, but obviously
that was not done deliberately.
All right,
what's the next wine?
Getting older.
What's the next wine?
Pinot more. So there we go.
Oh my God! I'm sorry, everyone.
That's why André can sleep through the night. Anyway,
All right.
So,
Elisa, 2023 Le Coeur Gamay.
Yeah, so pretty proud of this wine as again first year as a head winemaker. This is kind of was a build up wine that it come back from a trip in Beaujolais. We discover sort of the idea, not discover, but we were intrigued in the way that Beaujolais make Gamay. So, of course, we wanted to try. And this is carbonic maceration. So, whole cluster, keep it closed for about 2 weeks, not do anything. Just hoping nothing bad happened. But I think that's part of the excitement during harvest. And just to add it to the conversation that we had before, one thing that I really enjoy in here in Malivoire, as much as we have traditions in terms of, making ladybug and work with Pinot and Chardonnay, we still very open to try new things. Do they always work? Not necessarily, but are we open to that? Sure. Like, it's one thing that I think Shiraz taught me on the first few years is like, just try it. If it works, it works. If it's not, we'll do something with it. But there's no such a thing to keep it the same thing over and over again, because consumer change as well. You don't always have the guy to buy a case of Pinot Gris all the time, right? There are people that want to discover new things. There is younger generation that maybe they're on the wine gig and they're looking for something fun, or they're into these natural wines, and we gotta try and see if it works for us. And I always think that there's the experience is part of the growing into your career. Like, until you don't try, there's no books that tell you this is right, this is wrong. You can study chemistry or winemaking as much as you can, but until you don't put your fit into it, there's no way. And so this is also put me in a position where, coming from total different region, different mentality, it was a lot of learning to me, right? There's no such a grandfather that always done the wine in that way in their cellar. So the grandchildren has to do the same because the grandfather say that. Like Shiraz was said, do you want to make sparkling? Let's try to make sparkling. Do you want to make red sparkling? Why not?
So Le Coeur, which is what this Gamay is subtitled as, I guess. Subtitled, is that
Yep.
right? What is is it Le or La?
Le Coeur.
Le Coeur. What is Le Coeur? What does it signify?
I think Elisa hearkened to the trip to Beaujolais, the heart of Gamay country, and this was the wine that we walked away from wanting to make, and we still wanted to continue to make the Gamays that we had been making, our Gamay, our Courtney Gamay, and maintain that style, but you come home with something new, and so that was it. And it's a 100% whole cluster, as Elisa said, and probably the only wine that I said, Elisa, can I please taste these berries every couple days during harvest while it's in the carbonic, just so I can watch something happen in harvest? So this is a one tank in 2023 that I stuck my nose in.
Who in Beaujolais inspired you?
Oh, I mean, when we were looking at like this sort of what we would call semi-carbonic, Lapierre was certainly one that jumps out. I mean, their freshness and elegance in one package, and of course they're very natural as well. I think was one of the tops, but. We also love the experimentation of Jean-Paul Brun in the south, and just trying everything. So, a couple of those were real big markers for us.
That's pretty cool.
This is lovely. Like, this is just pure Gamay.
It feels a little like the Pinot too, where it's got like a density to it, but it's not too heavy. It's like the extraction is amazing on this.
I
It doesn't have any
the
bitterness.
juiciness of this wine. It's just Yeah.
Alcohol's 12.5%. So
Yeah, it's just not-
nice restraint.
That's a
on
little
this.
bit high, actually, for us.
Yeah, it's a-
But I mean,
I was
low,
gonna say that's a
low
3-bottle
for
night instead of a 4-bottle night, right? So
it's a little low for Lapierre, though. If we're going that
Yeah,
style.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that from this trip, we really took a lot of information and inspiration and then kind of like make our own, right? Like the way that we do things here, I hate the fact that we need to copy someone else, because I found that Canada and this region has its own identity, and we can make great wine here. And this is, I think, is an expression that, when someone can work with that type of grapes like Gamay can do, it gives you so much more just a normal like red wines.
Has that been probably the biggest surprise for you? You said you got off the plane, you had no idea we even made wine here, and now that you've been here 13 plus years, is that the big surprise that wow, Canada can make these great wines and stand on the world stage with places like Italy, like France? Do we stand there, or are we still have a long way to go, or a short way to go?
No, I think that was probably the biggest surprise, and I think from the last, I would say, at least 5 or 7 years, I see a big changes on the quality of the Canadian wines, and also on the consumer perspective as well. I felt at the beginning that it was more like, oh yeah, there are Canadian wines, but if I want a good sparkling, I should buy champagne, or if I want a good Cabernet Franc, I should go to the Loire or something. And then now we have the potential, I think, to show the rest of the world that Canada has own its own identity. Like that's why when Shiraz was talking about the Chardonnay, that sometimes we like the purity of the Chardonnay without any oak. Is just, I think when I started here, the first thing that I noticed it was everything was loaded with oak and not used to. In general, yeah, and then it was, it was more like, I wasn't used to at the North America style, because again, California is not that big in Italy, so sure you find some wines there, but it's not really a normal thing find Californian wine in Italy. So when you taste this wine from an Italian palate, it's like, oh my god, this is just chewing some oak in a glass. And now we can really express the fruit and the quality of the fruit here. It can be extremely exceptional.
So, Shiraz, when do you start growing some Sangiovese?
Oh my God, Michael! You went from asking like one of the best questions on the podcast to like one of the dumbest.
No, I want to, because she's saying you can make great this, make great that. You can only go.
Yeah, but
to
did you miss the whole point though, where
No,
she was
I
talking
got
about
it.
how Canada has its identity? Like, come on,
I got it,
That's
but we
one of the
still have
best
people
quotes.
trying to grow Sangiovese. We still have wineries trying to grow Nebbiolo. We have winery. We're still new world, and we're still throwing everything in the ground.
I don't think we are. I think the great wineries have figured out what works and what hasn't. Like, when we it was not that long ago we talked to Tom Panichetti, who said that he's sick of growing a vine house. We're talking about the good wineries. We're not talking about anyone. A vine house.
So you're not including Stratus in that.
Okay, when you have unlimited resources, you can plant whatever you want. There's exceptions to every rule.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I don't think I consider Stratus to be like a pure expression of terroir in Ontario, and you guys don't need to respond to this, because the way they do their viticulture is frankly different than anyone else.
It is, but they're growing a lot of grapes that probably should not be grown here.
With the resources to nurture that and the prices to reflect it. Do we want to spend $100 on a bottle of Malivoire Chardonnay because they're using some weird hinky-dinky clone that only crops to half a ton an acre?
Actually,
Maybe we are.
You got any hinky-dinky? You got any hinky-dinky clones you want to talk about right now? Because now I'm intrigued.
I know. So
And now you're getting me in trouble.
Shiraz is like, damn it, he knows about our hinky-dinky clone.
You even know the name of it.
All right, keeping things moving along. We've now got Cabernet Franc in our glass.
Yeah, this is something I never thought that, when Malivoire started, that they were ever going to make, really. Which is, I think, where Guilty Men comes into the whole thing. Suddenly Cabernet Franc is in a bottle, suddenly Sauve is in a bottle, suddenly Merlot is in a bottle. And you do make You don't make a Sauve every so. You make a Sauve every so often. Like
Not anymore.
Grape.
The grapes are gone.
And the Merlot you still making?
Yes. Yeah.
So, so you are doing a few Bordeaux, but Cab Sauve is gone.
Totally gone. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Never to come back.
Never to come back.
Never to come
Ooh.
back. Yeah. Elisa will agree with me on this
All
one.
right, I'm just checking. The Stout Vineyard's still out there, right?
No, but he's pulled all the Cab Sauv.
so he's made the smart choice on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
Yeah. Replanted with, guess what?
Gamay.
No, Cabernet Franc.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well,
That's just
I didn't think you were going to make the question easy.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not on your level yet.
All right, tell us about this Cab Franc.
Again,
Well,
I think
you
so.
jump in.
The idea of the Cabernet Franc, it was like, oh, we will never make red Cabernet Franc. It's always been for our rosé, and it was like, why would you want to make Cabernet Franc in Niagara? Like, there were not a lot of good example, at least like 10 years ago, of like the wine that we would relate it to something that we want to make.
She
and
just
then,
stabbed Brian Schmidt in the heart. Oh,
sorry.
Brian, I hope you're not listening.
He probably is.
Sorry. But I think it also depends on what your expectation on a wine and what you want to achieve also as a winemaker, right? Like, as we say, sometimes as a winemaker you want to make a wine that not necessarily please the crowd. And sometimes as a winemaker you have to make a wine that you would never drink, but you know that it's a crowd pleaser, so someone has to sell it. So unfortunately, it's the two faces of a winemaker. But anyway, long story short, when we did some reds on this Cabernet Franc, and I was like, well, this is deserve his own label. And then since then, I think it's been pretty consistent for us to make a single vineyard Cabernet Franc. And again, to me, it's part of the climate change as well, that I think this region is allowing us to make good Cabernet Franc because our season is longer. We have, fall that usually are not start to snow at the end of October, so we can actually ripe fruit longer. And that, to me, it's a result of like fruity, juicy, like that kind of Cabernet Franc that we are looking for.
I'm totally in agreement on that. I think the Cab Franc from 2022, which is what the vintage is on that one. I don't have my glasses on, but far enough away, I think it's a 2.
It is a 2, 2022, yeah. So we've been making fruit Gamay from this block actually since 2010. It took me like 3 years of making. Everything takes about 3 years of failure to get it right. And I was making Cabernet Franc since 2016 from just small, like 2 barrels, just to try and convince the team here that Cabernet Franc has a future. And it wasn't until 2010 that it was like, oh, it's finally good. Okay, let's bottle this. And once you start something, we just kept going with it. So, but we've gotten to a point now, and I think this is why I really want to showcase this wine, is we have planted Cabernet Franc, and this 2024 is going to be the first year that we'll have Malivoire grown Cabernet Franc.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's something where 10 years we were like, yeah, this is it. This is I don't we're not going to put it up with Gamay yet, but it's still something we're real fans of.
And it's just going to be the single bottling, or are you going to play with it a little bit more?
I think
more guilty men coming down the line.
Elisa made last year one. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 4 or 5 single vineyards of Cabernet Franc last year.
Whoa,
Nice.
Oops.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Well, do you want to give us what are you planning on doing with that?
I don't know yet. I have a lot of things in mind, but I think as a Cabernet Franc, I liked a little bit more aging before making the decision. But as per today, they all taste great. And again, it might be another, rosé situation. I was like, I don't know what to choose. So
We're going to have to come back.
Yeah, I mean, 100% we will.
Yeah, got to try that.
Thank you both for going through these wines with us, letting us know where Malivoire is now, and coming back, Shiraz. And Lisa, thanks for putting up with us for this. And
then we're going to...
It was painful.
We're going to subject Elisa to...
my least favorite game show.
The game show.
Yep.
So it'll be coming up... we're going to record it after this podcast,
Yep.
but who knows when it'll show up in the run.
I'm André Prue from underwinereview.ca, which hasn't been updated in about 6 months.
Great. Thanks. That's perfect. I'm Michael Pinkus of michaelpinkuswinereview.com. I can be found as the Grape Guy on social media, and I update my website a little bit more than you do.
A little bit too much, I think.
No, it's just enough.
At André Wine Review on social media for me.
Thank you very much, everybody. This was great. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Jim Ray, Adam Duran, and Ken Little.